come on into this dimension and come on into this amazing round table today. Check on in, guys, because we have an unparalleled and precedent conversation to get into with you guys. So check on in for this live. We are so excited because we're going to be featuring a very special guest today. We have Jean Decode with us, also accompanied with my powerful womanhood sistership divine team. As you guys know, if you've been following my channel for a while, you already do know Noko and Ani, and you would know that I do have Jean frequently come on the channel, and I keep having him back all the time because he's such a powerful voice. He's a spiritual warrior, and he's also a devout Christian. I don't know if all of you knew that or not, but uh, yeah, he definitely is. And he's a believer in God, of righteousness and truth. He carries the flame of Christ consciousness, and far beyond the constraints of religion. He's very God sovereign and free, and he definitely knows how to bridge worlds from the religious to the spiritual to the galactic levels, which is what makes speaking with Gene Decode so much fun, is because he can really illuminate all these hidden layers of truth that we're being called to see. So I'm going to give you guys a brief introduction here to kind of set the stage for this discussion, and then we're going to do some introductions here with everybody in this beautiful container today, and then we're going to jump into the topics. So together, we are going to be asking the fiery collective inquiry and question is Christianity collapsing? And I say this because I think it's a significant question to address at this time as a panel, because of all of the things that are going on in the world today when it comes to the holy wars. We know that this is really raging at this time. There's so much going on in terms of the Middle East. There's so much going on the homeland here in the United States. And a lot of this religious ideology is in the pressure cooker at this time. A lot's really coming to the surface, a lot's coming to the light. And one of the things that we're witnessing that's really unprecedented across Europe, particularly in the United Kingdom, is that churches are being emptied. I mean, nobody's really attending the churches, they're all getting sold, and then they're getting rebought and purchased and transformed into mosques. So this is kind of expanding all across Europe right now. The leaders of Europe seem to be converting and folding to a new religious Templar that's coming in. We have Islamic demonstrations, self-flagellation rituals, and calls to prayer that are very precedent in public spaces, shifting spiritual superiority out of the favor of Christianity, which is very interesting. We have Christians that are being hunted and beheaded all over the world right now. You may have heard about what's going on in the Congo and obviously in many countries in the Middle East. And the Christian rate, even in the United States, is declining. They say it's gone from 1990, where it used to be 85%, it's gone down to current times, 2024, 2025, where it's at 60%. So what's kind of playing out is we're seeing a silent cultural shift that we might shy away from addressing and talking about, but we want to talk about it today. For those of us that are in the higher consciousness community and really a part of that God's sovereign freedom community, we know that there's a global spiritual shift that's moving us into the new earth timelines where we are simply praying and connecting to God in kind of like an omnious type of fashion where it's like we are finding our truth in everything. And we're all about expansion and expanding the mind and higher consciousness. So, are those that are in Christianity leaving Christianity and embarking on the path of spirituality? Gene Decode seems to be, dipping into so many different pots when it comes to this, and I think that's really awesome. But I think there is a lot of concerns to address when it comes to what is happening to Christians within the 3D. So I pose the questions. Could this be the fall of one of humanity's most influential spiritual lineages, or are we standing at the edge of a new spiritual renaissance, a return of King Arthur, the sacred masculine, and the reclamation of Christ consciousness on earth? Is this awakening within people at this time? And also, what about the other prophetic echoes within other traditions? And this is something that Ani had sent to me in our text group, which I think is very significant to look at. She sent me the abridged Kalachakra Tantra, which stems from, I believe it's Hinduism or Buddhism philosophy. Is it Hinduism or Buddhism?
It's Buddhism, I believe.
Buddhism.
But it's kind of a combination of the two because they kind of, intermix with each other. But I would say more Buddhism.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. This warns against a future invasion by a non-Indic people who will follow the line of the prophets Adam, Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Mani, the founder of the primarily Iranian religion Manichaeism, following Muhammad and Mahdi, the Islamic Messiah. To meet the threat, the king of Shambhala united the Hindus and Buddhists into one caste with the Kalachakra initiation. As a united society, the people of Shambhala would then be able in the future to follow a Buddhist Messiah king in defeating the invading forces and establishing a new golden age. So, what this is basically highlighting is that there are dark forces that are coming forward that are trying to block the coming of the new golden age. And right now, being in the time of change, being in the time of these great shifts, being in the uh, Kali Yuga or the ending cycles of this, that there's things coming forward and that this might come through resistance. So, yeah, we just want to encourage you guys to look at the global statistics of Christianity, and where in many nations it's now a minority and it's shrinking in influence. And so, what does this mean if this value fades within people's hearts? What does this mean if the churches actually do fall and when faith is actually lost? And when we also don't have any masculine protectors come forward to rise, do we become vulnerable to control and spiritual confusion? So these are a lot of questions, but I'm so excited that you guys have come to discuss this with us. I think these are very important, significant questions right now, and I'm so happy that Jean's here to discuss this. So let's just take a second to introduce all of my beautiful guests and say hello and let everyone know where you're coming from tonight, and maybe a little bit about how you're gonna, bring some essence to this conversation.
All right. Hi, everybody, again. I'm Ani Sophene, and I'm in Ashland, Oregon, about 1 hour north of Mount Shasta. I'm so happy to be on the show again with my divine soul sisters. And I'm so happy I get to ask Gene all these amazing questions that I have for him. Hopefully, there will be time. Today, I will probably bring in more information about the Kala Chakra prophecy, as well as comparing it to revelations in the Bible, and then also with the Hopi prophecy and the transition from the Kali Yuga into this new cycle that we're going to be in for another probably 1,200 years. And so this is a huge transition time. So I'm going to bring in some of that information and then also ask Jean some of these questions as well. So I'm happy to be here and thanks for having me.
Aloha, lovelies. It's me, Noko, Indy's assistant. I'm just here to hold down the space and really be a sacred gatekeeper. I was guided to bring my Bible out today, which is just such a beautiful one. It was gifted to me when I first started going through my spiritual awakening. And I live in the Bible Belt. I'm in Georgia. So I definitely have a lot of Christian people around me. And I grew up with Christian background, Protestant background. And also, I was of the mindset of really having a hard time choosing a religion because they all had so many interesting pieces and parts. So I love to study religion. I've read a lot of books on Buddhism and Hinduism and even have some Hindu tattoos. So this is right up my alley. I'm a very spiritual person and I love the freedom and sovereignty, around being able to enjoy all the different facets of religion. So that's what I'm here bringing today, and I'm so excited to be on with Jean and these beautiful ladies. Can't wait to get the conversation started.
And go ahead and take it away, Jean. Say hello to our guests.
Uh, Good afternoon, morning, evening. night, depending on your dimension density, level, and location. Glad to be here and thank you for having me back. And nice to meet your lovely ladies here. So go ahead and take it away. I'm ready.
Okay, so, Jean, what are you seeing going on right now in the world when it comes to some of these struggles of what's playing out in terms of the holy wars and what's occurring with the collapse or the decline of Christianity? What do you see as happening in the internal fire of transformation?
Actually, I don't see it as a decline, as I see it as a renaissance in which those that are true Christians, there's actually, they say we're in the time of the separation, the CME that'll be coming and the ascension process is a time of separation between, is in the Bible, the wheat and the chaff. However, there's another term that has been omitted intentionally from the various translations of the Bible, and that's chard. So chard is something that looks like wheat, but you can't eat it. And so these are Christians, self-proclaimed or proclaimed Christians that say they're Christians, but they don't act like Christians. When you get down to it, yeah, they'll say I follow Christ and they go to church, and they may go to church, it may not. They have their Bible, they do all these things. But when it comes to being in the realm of following Christ and living the example that Christ showed us of kindness, compassion, consideration, respect, non-judgmental to other Christians and other people who love the one God of all creation and worship that one God, they don't. They will attack, they'll judge, they'll be ruthless, they'll be, cruel. They have no compassion, and so they'll turn on their fellow individual. This is a time of separation where those that spew out, and Christ called these people out, and that they are the spawn of the devil. There are serpents and snakes, and it goes to what Israel really is. Israel is not, and Christ said, those that want a armed or physical place on earth called Israel are serpents and minions of Satan and reptiles. He called them as they really are, and they're the minions of that. And so we're in a time of where that is being separated out, when the ones that are the true Christians are become evident, those that are kind, considerate, respectful, non-judgmental, etc., because no human being or other being that's corporeal can judge another being. You can't do it because you do not know exactly that other being's lives, all of it put together. You have to absolutely know everything about that other person, what's in their head, every single detail of their life, everything they felt, everything they've done, what their motivations are, all of that. Well, there's only one being that knows all of that. And that's the one being that created absolutely everything and is even more immense than all of that. That's a being that can then do that. But other than that, no one else can. So in this situation, we're talking about a refinement of what is happening is you have an armed camp that's trying to create greater Israel. And these people that are in what is called Israel are not Israelites. They're not Hebrew. They're not the Jewish people either. They're what are called Zionists, which are not Jewish. The original Zionists are not even from this planet. They're not the human beings. Human beings aren't from this planet either, but we have adopted being caretakers for this planet. They are not. They will destroy the planet. They'll rip it apart. They'll tear up the ground. They'll, just to get minerals and wealth and gold and all of these things. They have no respect for life on the planet, no respect for the planet herself. They have no respect for, they're actually a death cult. So they will kill, they will rape. What we see going on in the Middle East right now, in the Gaza, or in Syria with the destruction of the Azerites and the Druze. And the Druze are the bloodline of Christ. They are part of that, but with the Ishmaeli that protect and are the bloodline of Christ in the case of the Druze. The Ishmaeli, excuse me, protect the bloodline of Christ. So what Christ said is Israel, are all those that follow and worship the one God with absolute compassion and understanding and kindness and respect to their fellow person. And that could be anyone anywhere on earth. It could be any human being anywhere, anytime. A lot of people would say, you can't be a Christian because, like Buddhists, but you follow the one God of all creation. Some Buddhists don't, but many Buddhists actually do. I started out that way back with the first book I ever read, which was the I Ching, because I wanted to understand when I was, like in going into fourth grade, or fifth grade rather. That was the first book report I ever did, was on that book. And so I followed that with the inner chapters and the outer chapters, Chuang Shu and Lao Tzu, and continued on with the Analects of Confucius and many other those things, before I got to going to the church, because my father was actually, and my parents both were very, very atheists, where they refused to believe that there was any being that could have created everything. And it was hard for me to understand how that could be true. I knew, taking the I Ching, that it represented everything everywhere. I just couldn't figure out. I spent years doing the hexagrams trying to figure out how it symbolized the entire structure of everything everywhere. And I have discerned that now with some brilliant minds to help me, such as Nassim Haramein, who explains exactly the fractal nature of the universe and how that is literally, if you look at the eight-carton universe model, it is, and how all of the galaxies fall on a pattern. It is the structure of the universe, and it goes all the way down to the lowest level, into the beyond the atom, beyond the electron, proton, beyond the quarks, into units of consciousness below the Planck distance in the quantum layer. That is the structure of the quantum layer. When you go beyond that, you go into another universe below this one, many universes below this one. It goes on forever, because the one God of all creation, everything everywhere, is absolutely infinite and limitless. And a lot of these people that are going into some kind of limited definition for the one God, that isn't God. A lot of this death cult, their God is AI. And they're pushing it, like Nobles Harari. He is constantly pushing how AI and redesigning humans and putting all kind of nanotech in us and all kinds of things will improve us. And the same thing with this creating GMO and all of this. Well, for
Gene,
me,
can I ask
never
you a
made.
question? Can I ask you
Oh,
one
yeah.
question?
Sorry,
Because
I tend to get going. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
know it's okay, but I kind of wanted to go back to some of the points you were making, because there was some good things you were bringing through, and I wanted to see if you could bring more through it. So you said the Zionists weren't from this like space-time dimension. So where did the Zionists originally come from? And do you have insight into, I guess, then the creation of Israel itself? Do you feel like the Israelis that are there are like entitled to that land? Like, isn't there who was it that gave Israel the land of Israel? Was it the British, or how did that all begin? And do you feel like all that information, does that tie into, I mean, we know it ties into the wars that are happening now. And so what do you think's happening? Is there curses? Is there hexes? Is there black magic spells? What's playing out over the occupation of that land? Like, what do you see is happening there? Is this actually a galactic war going back to these places where the Zionists come from?
Yes, it goes back really far. A lot of people say Atlantis, Lemuria, and they chakras and the 12 power points on Earth were set up by the Atlanteans to attack the spiritual Lemurians. The Atlanteans were very technological. They used power crystals, such as in what controls the Bermuda Triangle, which is one of 12. You have the Giza Plateau, where they've now believe they have, through ground penetrating technologies, have found the lost city of Amenti. Then you also have one in Japan. You also have one right near one of your guests who lives near Shasta. One's in Shasta. The mountain itself is a power node, and there are a total of 12. So this species that came to Earth, called the Zionists, they call themselves Zionists, Z-I-O-N, but the original spelling is S-C-I-O-N, from their home star system, which they decimated in trying to lock up the Merkabah field, which is a U4 toroid, on their home worlds of Ariana and Na. They blew them up and into debris. And so, just like in the Superman episode, that debris has reached the Earth. They had killed the heart of their planet, and the black goo that came from that planet is now here. It's what we see with what is in the jab material that organizes itself in the presence of 4G and 5G into nanotechnology and gives out a Bluetooth signal and connects people to the internet. The Earth's black goo is compassionate and loving. So they, in trying to change the Earth's black goo into the black goo from their home worlds, half the scientists committed suicide because it showed them the nature of who and what they've been doing and what kind of person they have. And they went insane, showing how decrepit they were. And a lot of them, the other half became extremely devout Christians and quit being scientists and doing all the mad scientist stuff. So their homeworlds of Ariana and Na being gone, they came to Earth. They landed in a place called the Pontic Steppes, which spanned down through Ukraine, Romania, Hungary, all the way down to the Caspian Sea. And then at that time, the original Hebrew people who came from an area known as Eden, which is actually between rivers. It's near the Red Sea. And so if you look at that, that does not define where Israel is, the land of Israel and the Gaza Strip. That's called the Fertile Crescent. They moved out of that area as population and farming abilities, agriculture, technology spread. They moved up along the Tigris and the Euphrates into Anatolia, which is now called Turkey. And then they came down along across the upper parts of the coast of Accra, Tunisia, and Tunis, and spread all the way across the upper parts of Africa and down along the Nile. And so, and then, of course, into what we know now as the area where Israel is. But all of those people, like I said, if you look at Ben Gurion or Smoke Rich or Bibi Netanyahu, that's not their original names. They took on those names to sound like they're Israelites, but they are not. Their names are Middle Eastern. And I can actually probably pull up and play it in a bit, item that actually shows the true nature of who these beings really are. But they're Zionists. And Zion, the Zion state of Israel, they even say they're Zionists, that was set up by one of the lead Satanists on earth, families. That is a barbaric family that has pretty much caused every single war in the last few hundred years and has absconded with most of the gold on earth. And so that's now coming down. But we see this family called Rothschild with cousins named Carnegie, Rockefeller, etc., and causing wars and using illegitimate children, such as somebody named the little mustached man who started World War II. He is actually not that name. He actually is originally born Schicklgruber. And then to match the prophecies, his mother remarried a man with the right name because it's easy to fulfill prophecies that your group put forward if you're the ones creating all the wars and having all the money. And with that amount of wealth and power, you can either buy or blackmail 95% of whoever's in charge of any government on earth. And so this is what they've been doing. We see it in the Congress and the Senate. We see it with the NGOs that control from Israel itself. And I don't mean the one that is following the one God. They're following a God that they say is a God. It's not a God. It's a non-terrestrial being with higher density and higher abilities at fifth density negative, but it is not the one God that created everything else. So the transfer and creation of Israel was through the Balfour.
Dean?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question as well?
Sure.
You had mentioned Satan. So I was just wondering, because I was looking over Revelation in the Bible. And do you think that we're moving towards a apocalyptic battle, an event? Because it seems like all these prophecies are lining up. And in Revelation, I'm sure you know this, 20.4 through 6, it states that those that had the mark of the beast on their forehead and hands will be cast out and after the battle. And then we will have 1,000 years of peace living with Christ consciousness, but that Satan will be put underground, basically, or kind of like cast down. And then he will rise back up. And then we will have the big battle of the Gog and Magog. And then after that battle, then the beast, quote unquote, will be cast out and will not return. Do you think that the beast is this AI and this these technological advancements and stuff and nanotech and all of this stuff? Do you think that's what the beast is?
Well, if you look at the prophecies within the Bible itself, to have a number that you have to calculate to understand it, because it shall be, 606. Well, that's 666. Well, if you look at the UPC barcode, that's what it's based on. It's based on 666. And the beast that's in Brussels, that International Bank of Exchange is run by, that's what it runs on. That's how it knows it runs on negative parity. So when it comes a single bet, it turns itself on from a standby mode. So you can't have a singular bit in the byte that is the word for, it's the word of this beast. So when you represent every single thing on earth, free nor bond, rich nor poor, to buy nor sell anything, that number has to be a binary word representing digital numbers. Well, if it doesn't start and end, it has to start and end and be what's called reflexive. From the middle out, it has to be, the middle two digits have to be same, and the outer two digits have to be the same. And it can't be on the ends being a 1 because of negative parity. So that means the out numbers have to be 0, and you can't have 000 because that's an off state. So it means it has to be 0110. Well, that's the number 6, and it's at the beginning and middle and end, because the left side of a barcode is the manufacturer, where the right side is the product, because you have many companies making the same product. So that is the number you see on a barcode. It's those two lines. You have 3 different kinds of lines in a barcode. You have thin, medium, and thick. Actually 4, and then double thick to represent all the numbers from 0 through 9. You can't have 3 digits. You have to have 4, because 1 plus 2 plus 4 is 7. You don't have 8 and 9. So you have to have one in powers of 10. You have the ones place, the tens place, the hundreds. Well, in powers of 2 or digital, you have 1, 2, and 4, and then the next one is 8. So you have to have the 8s place. So it's a 4-digit number. And so when we look at the barcode that is used for all product, that is the number. And what is running that number? The beast in Brussels. And what is that tied to? That was tied to Sophia, which is gone now. So that being that's running that for this timeline, this Earth, this universe, is non-inal, which is a reptilian being where Lucifer came from. The Lucifer is actually the daughter son, because reptiles can change sex, of that being. And then the being that inhabited that, known as Satan, it's complicated, inhabited or possessed that being. Lucifer is Satan, or the fallen angelic known as Zazel. So if you go, it's complicated because they've taken out the complexities of the Bible in part of translation. Like the King James, he had certain things, he had an agenda that were mistranslated. For example, if it says the mark was to be on the right hand of the forehead, not until later, not until the King James. Before that, it was in the right hand or forehead. Well, what do we know went in the right, in this case, arm? Or if you were a thief and had that cut off, in your forehead. And if you look at for example, your Social Security abstract or your police abstract, you'll see a whole bunch of, it used to be before the dots, you would see, if you turned it sideways, a barcode. And that was your number. And it was on everybody. And it is on everybody. And so as the WEF heads towards a CBDC, central bank digital currency, they will control everything. They will print money out of nothing. They have absolute power and control over it. And they can monitor everything everybody else does, but nobody can monitor them because they're the servants of that one being. So in the coming battle, we've already gone through the 1,000 years. That is the battle we're heading to now. The last battle, we've already done the 1,000 years. We're heading towards the time of ascension. And it's a separation of two timelines because they did not publish the missing books of the Bible that talk about the other timeline. God does not allow for no choice at all. That's it. That's all you can do is this huge freaking destruction of everything. And then Satan rules and all of that stuff. That's no choice at all. God is all about choice. It's the highest law that you have the right to choose.
That's kind of like why I was bringing forward this aggressive pressure that's pushing up against Christianity. When you say we're kind of in this last battle, do you feel like this is something that's going to actually defeat the Abrahamic religions, or it's going to go after certain Templars within those religious factions? Is it something that is going to basically break down the war between the Anunnaki fratricidal brotherhood and bloodlines? Because there is an aggression and a warfare that's going on, whether it's Israel, Zionists, and then you have Islamists, all the stuff that's transpiring right there in the Great Rift of Africa when it comes to the tension between what seems to be between Judaism and Islam. And then you have, Christianity, which seems to also be taking this hit. It says that, Christianity is actually the most attacked religion out of the three sects. Like it's the one that's been being uh, decapitated and essentially martyred, and it is the one that's but the Christians don't fight back, right? Because their whole ideological belief set is that of compassion. It is of acceptance. So what do you think is happening in between these three sets that are like expressing the Armageddon right now? And how do you think that this battle is going to play out? And is anybody more in the right or more in the wrong? Like what, morally speaking? I had a vision the other day that like the right way to it all is to actually extract the good from all three different factions and create, you know, one system out of all three, because there's actually good in each one, and then there's this really devastating shadow that's also within each one as well. So if the rise of the beast is AI, then it just doesn't entirely make sense exactly how it's going to unfold. But I do see that Christianity seems to take a hit that is showing itself aggressively right now when you look at the numbers of what's happening in Europe.
Yeah, so what you're seeing, originally the three three religions were one. It's to divide them up to fight each other, because it's a lack of understanding, which is easy to do when you remove huge amounts of the original sacred books that were available in Lemuria, which is the first civilization of human beings on this planetoid, when it was a moon called Kingu of the planet known as Tiamat that orbited between Mars and Jupiter. That was when they broke up the planet into pieces, and this planet, which was a moon, came to lie between where it is now and the orbit it is in now. And so they've been using a misunderstanding for getting the crescent to fight the cross and the star and all of these different things so that they could rule. And you do not look up at who's pulling your strings and dividing you and giving you false ideologies to follow. And so people have lost, when I say you, I'm speaking in the broad term of generically, not specifically you, Indy, or your guests here, your other ladies, or any specific person. I'm talking about the fallen ones that use this trick. It's a trick that when they came to Scion, they used the same thing to get them to follow. They used the same thing in Atlantis to get them to follow. They used the same thing in World War II, in World War I. They have these ideologies they give people and brainwash them into, like we see in Ukraine, into being something that's not who they originally are. The Ukrainian people are Slavic. They're Middle Eastern. Like the actual people ruling Israel, they're by Middle Eastern. I don't mean Israel. I mean the European areas with Poland and Romania and Ukraine and those areas. And so we look at the term Slavic, well, that's where slavery came from. And that was set up as well. And you do not enslave your fellow being because it's saying they're not worthy and you are. The master is given some divine right or something. And so this is a technique that they have used to divide humanity, to destroy itself. And so that's what they want us to do, so they can rule and have all the wealth and power, because they're trying to fill something inside themselves that you can't fill without God, without the understanding of the one God of compassion, love, and truth. If you're trying to fill it with wealth and power and trying to get immortal, well, you're not eternal if you're immortal. An immortal being has to prey off of others and feed off of their wealth and their life force itself and their blood and all these, their blood sacrifices. And we see that is quite profound in all of the Grammy Awards, the Golden Globe Awards, the Olympics, the recent Olympics in Paris, in France. You see it everywhere. You see Satanism out in front and center. And then the denigration of the divine feminine and the divine masculine and the family itself. Because you tear down the basic structure of human beings and say, well, there's not two, there's 17 or 18 or 22, or, you confuse the issue of gender and sexuality, of a choice of how you're going to practice sexuality with the actual ability to reproduce people on Earth. It's two different things. And you get that so confused in somebody, they don't understand it anymore. They can't even define it. They don't even know how to define what a woman is. It's really simple. A woman can create a baby inside herself and bring it to the physical earth. Well, men can't do that. I don't care what you do to them, what hormone therapies and whatever you whack off and tuck inside and do whatever you want. They're not going to have kids. It's not going to happen. And so, we see that now where that's being recognized, and the whole world is breaking up into two camps. Well, what is that? Gog and Magog. You have one camp that is practicing actual demonology and destruction of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and you see the other side they're practicing truth and honesty and compassion. And one side says things that are absolutely, if you look at MSNBC, CNN, all these platforms, it's obvious they're lying now. They say this and then later on they say the exact opposite, and they blame the enemy, like Ukraine is blaming Russia of all these genocidal things, while they're doing that because that's projection and gaslighting and all these different things. That is what the minions of Satan have always done.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we protect the mind of people
Absolutely.
overall.
Your
I mean,
mind will be blown.
Yes, I totally agree.
yeah, because I mean, that's what you see. You tell somebody something long enough, you just tell them the same thing, even if it's a lie. You say it over again and over it again and over again, and they hear that lie every single day for a year. Well, now it's it's almost truth. You tell them every day again for another year, they believe it. And it doesn't take long to completely mind wash an entire collective under that hypnosis. I mean, it truly is. I think me and Ani were talking about like it's hypnotic. It's like magical spells. Like it is hypnosis. I mean, just the point that you were making with the don't know what a man or a woman is. I mean, I literally just saw a lady on X the other day trying to convince people that men could have children and telling them that they could have butt births. And I was like, you know, it's funny. But it's just, it's absurd. It's ridiculous. But there are people there sitting there taking this in, absorbing it. I mean, I really think that the whole earth, we should get an evaluation on the intellectual level of humankind, and things should be based off of IQ scores because, and the whole goal should be to, get those up. I think essentially, because it's really sad that you can, and I think this is why, you see the Middle East so endowed with so much violence and hatred and killing and things like this over their ideology. Not saying it's not happening, it's happening everywhere, but there it's like barbarianism because I mean, they're taught this from childhood since they're a baby, and so they grow up with these really inverted belief systems. But that's, it's so corrupted on so many angles all over the world. I really would like to give also maybe Noko a chance to chime in with this because I saw her shaking her head and Ani too. Um,
I
with what you
mean,
think about this.
this is what we've been talking about on these roundtables, the playbook, this, divide and conquer and, the programming. I mean, this is just a thread that we're continuing to weave, and bring that truth forward to the masses and bring awareness to it. I've been really loving like on social media, I'm seeing a lot more people coming forward, just with information around like abortion and things like this. You're seeing a lot more people showing up at these, places where they're having rallies or showing up at colleges and doing, educational awareness things around this and actually challenging these people, these youth that are supposedly educated, right? Going to these brainwashing, education systems, and it's really refreshing to be able to see those conversations and to see you actually see the demons come out. You actually can witness. I even just saw a woman praying at a government thing where they shut her down and told her to stop praying, and you could see in the background this demon came out of this person and started screaming as soon as she said the word Jesus. And it's just these are the things that people do need to see because those are that are on the fence, those that have been kind of, shying away from this space and not knowing which way to turn. It's really activating. It's really helping people, to witness that truth and to see these things happen in real time, and to be inspired and motivated to step out onto that platform and have those really tough conversations. Because without calling it out, this programmed robotic AI stuff is going to keep taking foot. It's going to keep rooting into this planet if they're not called out on the carpet and they're not actually challenged. I mean, I've seen some of these conversations go really well where, some young adults are willing to listen and actually come to a point like, wow, I've never thought about it that way before. And granted, there's a lot that go the other way, right? You can't win them all, and it's not about winning, but it is about having these conversations and allowing people to see the other side, to really think outside of the programming that they've ingested and use their mind, because many of them do still have brain cells in there. Many of them do still have an IQ. And so, I think it's important that we have these tough conversations and that we speak our truth and that we do it with compassion and kindness. That's what I love that I'm seeing is when you see those two sides meeting, it's very clear who is living in Christ consciousness. It's very clear who is speaking from the heart and who is speaking truth, because you can literally feel the energy. You can literally witness, one side that is kind, compassionate, loving, and the other side that is spewing hatred, that is demonic, that is, literally not making any logic or sense. And so I'm just thankful. I'm thankful to see this. I'm thankful for the platforms and the people that are taking their time and their efforts to do this. And, I think it's really important. As we see, this just continues to, if there's no stoppages, if there's nobody creating these moments of blockage, then it's just going to, march on into, as I saw our sacred brother Azek talking about transhumanism. I mean, we know where all this is leading. We've talked about this before, removing the organic template of humans, of what it is to be in the human experience. And I think there's so many of us here that are just not willing to allow that. And so I'm thankful, I'm thankful to have a voice. I'm thankful for each and every one of you that are out there doing this work with love in your heart and, speaking your truth. So keep it up.
It's interesting though what you're saying right there. I'm like, it's got to be something with the value systems, and this is where it is. When you see like the leftists and the right, and it's like you see people aligned with truth and the heart values, like you're just talking about, and then you have this person coming out of left field that's got the inverted chakra system, maybe the transgender things going on. I mean, you see these ideological wars. It's really just this misalignment of values. The values are misaligned, and I feel like that's what Christianity has held, at least for the base template of many, many countries that were founded off of these things, was to align value systems. So now we're seeing, I think, because so many people are moving away from faith and they're entering into the unknown in terms of value, they lose so much disconnection from what's rooted. I think a lot of these people that are like pro transgender, pro all of these more, I would say, harmful or inverted ideologies, like it's because they've lost their foundation. There's like the value system is degenerated. So yeah, I mean, how do we get that back into alignment? How do we pull that back up from the 1D Earth? Because everybody's value systems are all over the place. Um, so, and then it's like when you say the one true God, and maybe Gene Decode could speak to this, it's like I don't know if the one true God is judging us off of what value system. If God doesn't judge, but in some ideologies, God does judge. God is angry. God is wrathful. God is envious. I mean, when you look at the Yaldabaoth and Yahweh and, all of these, Enki and Enlil, the fratricidal brothers, really, which is what the Abrahamic religions have come out of, the God wars are happening and occurring. So it's like, even in the God realm, I mean, this is distorted. So it's like, how do we open up those channels, clear the distorted God consciousness, reset the value systems on the planet? And I feel like this all aligns to gold and our resources being taken off planet and this whole Zionist takeover that Gene's talking about. But it's like, I mean, you see what would need to be reset in terms of consciousness of humanity to get things back into balance, but it's almost like the pH is off everywhere or something in humankind.
Yeah.
I'm going to speak to that. I think that this is just this is like the last stages of the Kali Yuga is what this is. And that even though there's massive delusional psychosis happening right now on our planet because of technology, which is true, like birthing out of your butt that does not make any sense. I think that everything needs to come to the surface so that there can be this like karmic cleansing. And so there's been these like repeat cycles that have happened, and certain karma has not been played out. And we need to play it out now in order for us to get to that next stage. And we will get to that next stage, but with a whole birthing process and karmic, cleansing process, it's ugly. It's not going to be fun, and it's going to hurt. But however, in the long, and we're going to do the hard work, those of us that are like aware. But in the long run, it's going to be good for the planet and good for humanity. And I do believe that we will get to that point, but certain things need to come out. Certain, I keep on going back to the word cleansing. And cleansing, can be cyclical based upon planetary cycles of cleansing. Also, where we are, like, as we are rotating around the galactic core. But I do believe, and the ancients have spoken about this before, but like we will hit a point where humanity will be able to start remembering and coming to that, like you said, Indy, like where those back to those like morals and values. And I do believe that humanity has a choice too, like we can choose whether if we want to be service to self or service to others. And Jean said that too, like it really comes down to the choice, and like the one infinite creator will not judge us. We have the choice to go back to the one infinite creator, and the way that we're going to go there, we can choose different directions, and so I do believe that when like some of those, like you said, some of those, the Yahweh and all of that, Anunnaki stuff, and Enki and Lil, when they're saying, that if you don't do it this way, then you're going to go to hell. Like that's bullshit, and that's just projecting fear. But I don't know if Jean wants to speak on that too, but that's kind of like my input. Jean, are you there?
I'm ready. I'll just let you ladies make sure I don't interrupt you. So it's really simple. And we see a lot of Trump CEOs are going down this line. They know DEI, military is to fight war, so no there. Men do not, I don't care what you've been altered, participate in female sports because it's, for one thing, it's an impossible competition. Due to this structure, the arms are longer, all kinds of certain structural differences. A woman's not, even if the male's is the same muscle structure as far as strength, the same as the female. The arm length is greater for many sports like swimming or things like that. Even in martial arts, that can make a difference unless the person's very good at their martial arts. A greater length of reach has some advantages to it. That's why certain types of martial arts were invented. So women, actually, Tai Chi was started by a woman and none, So we see with the executive orders of Trump there are two genders, plain and simple. Then going back to what you were saying about God, the Yahweh and Enki and Enlil and all of this. Well, a being that created and is everything everywhere, and then so, a whole lot more than that. It is everything everywhere. What does it have to be jealous of itself? Of course not. Does it judge? Not in the sense that we say judge. It judges by laws that were set up prior to creation that govern creation itself. What we learned is to understand as karma or cause and effect. It's just basic. What you create, in other words, what you sow, you plant in the ground, you put that energy, action, thought, form, deed, action, word out. It comes back to you because everything goes back to its source, because everything is not linear, it's circular. Everything comes back to where it started. Well, if you started it, it comes back to you. And in magnetism, opposites attract and likes repel. So it pushes exactly what you put out back to you. And the only thing is if you take responsibility, it could get to where it's instant karma, or it takes a long, long time to come back to you because you deny it. And we now see that judgment coming back, or that karma. And who's the judge? You are. When you go beyond the corporeal realms, beyond fifth density, sixth density, you're out of corporeality, and all this ego and your personality fall away, and you become part of the eternal Holy Spirit that is giving you life, from your soul body to your mental body to your learning body, causal sinful body, whatever you want to call it, all the way down to your physical body. And then this last body being the soul body that has all of the energies of all that held together. Well, as you lose corporeality, the only body that's left is the soul body. So in corporeal form, if you get rid of the soul body, when you leave the physical realm, you have nothing to hold in the Holy Spirit. The soul is so immensely powerful. That's the battle we're in, the battle for the soul. And so how do you confuse a being in a lower level is you put all of these false ideologies, neuro-linguistic programming, thoughts and ideas of different types of sexes. And, we're a species that has two. It's very, very simple. And there's essentially two choices too: to be kind, considerate, and respectful, or to be aggressive and just, attack others and do. It's a very simple choice. It comes down. And so we see, to make where everybody is represented by their government, or their government runs them. It's always breaks down to two choices. And then those that run do so because they're put in charge by the people, and the people are actually in charge of them, or they are given some divine right by some god. And you have two, Inky and Enlil. It doesn't matter what you call them, good cop, bad cop. It's the same beings playing off people so they fight each other, so they never look up that this divine right to rule. Nobody has divine right to rule. It's all that you represent your statesman. You represent the people so that you can administer the government, but you aren't the government. The government is a series of laws that are divine laws when you get down to it, just like the Constitution. And there were very angelic beings at the writing of the Constitution that dictated it. That's why it says, "In God we trust." And then they go into what God? Well, there's only one God that created everything. Everything else, excuse me, is a game to play off on people. So when it comes down to it, it's very simple. Like we see, it takes a fortune to get an education. Now Trump's gone around that with executive orders, and all these grants to universities are going to go to create a U.S. Academy with a free education that's recognized. You get diplomas and everything. And it's recognized by all the major industry heads and all of this. Same thing, getting back to the basics of healthy and good food, like what they're doing, putting RFK in charge, where all of these GMOs and all of this. So where do we see this going on? We see this in BRICS, where in Russia, you can get a grant of land as long as you grow completely organic. You can be given the land as long as you are a caretaker and you treat the land well and you grow naturally. It's a very simple thing. Or you do all this crazy GMO. Well, if you're believing there's one God that created everything and you think you can modify that and do better, or if you're an evolutionist and you say it took billions and millions of years of multiple mutations and weeding out survival of the fittest, blah, 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 all of this ridiculousness. Well, what makes you think you can improve on millions of billions of years? Like, you're not going to improve. You're going to put something out there that has not gone through the checks and balances. And so it's going to get away from you. And they're doing the same thing that caused the fall of Atlantis. If you look I'm going to be doing decodes on things like what they found in China Lake and what's underneath Libya, what's going on in Dulce, taking people using CRISPR technology and taking a person and putting genetic material, and making somebody into a chimera, a living person, a living human being, into a mixture of more than one being. Well, that literally is the definition, it's beyond DEI now. You're actually altering the divine form created by God of that being, and you're making two beings in there or three beings in there that are all very miserable. They have these beings that are attacked them in China Lake, and one part of them screaming and attacking, the other part screaming, kill me, because they're trapped in a body, and it is, it's blasphemy to God. So it's very simple. Back to the basics, back to how God made things.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It had me thinking about how the system was built, like to make, professionals, people that have their degrees, more godlike, and people looking at doctors and putting them on pedestals as gods. And now you see doctors, literally acting like gods, changing people's bodies, surgerizing, like Jean said, hacking stuff off, it's really it hurts my heart, but it's part of that confusion, right? That plan to divide and confuse and get people off of the one true God, if they're actually putting their faith and their blind faith into science, into scientists and doctors and collegiates. This is definitely seems like part of that playbook and that system to kind of confuse everyone,
Yeah. Well, my question I had for Gene while he was talking, so what is your take then with Trump pivoting then to, because you brought up BRICS and you brought up how some of the values of Russia seem to be a little bit more like they're holding more of like maybe foundation in their values that are kind of holding true to the organic laws. It does appear that all the countries in NATO do seem to have like it's like the liberalist left mindset and ideology, the multiculturalism, the DEI, all of these things. Um, how do you think that's going to continue to transpire here in the United States if the US continues to align more with Russia and BRICS and continues to pull away from NATO and European alliances? Because, I mean, you already see the uprising here in the United States. Like, all of the Tesla dealerships are essentially being protested, and cars are being blown up and written all over, and Tesla buildings are getting, people are like spray painting them. And now you have like patriots showing up to the Tesla locations to try to, fight off these protesters. And it just seems like it's really spiraling, and that a lot of the Democratic Party, you would say, is not really able to handle any of this, that they're actually resorting to terrorist-like behavior and a lot of extreme violence. Um, do you think that there's going to be a point that people actually start to settle down and can release all of this anger? I think we definitely need to do a clearing on this in terms of Gridwork and like the healing within the nation. Uh, but it just seems like, that Trump derangement syndrome is going on, right? Where like people just can't get a grip on reality and they can't really get back to the values, like the core values.
We see it with J.P. Sears outlines it quite often, like his one where his wife was in a coma for a long, and then she woke up, and so Trump's not out. No, he's back in again. What? And she's like, telling, so now is so and so still having his baby? Turns out men can't do that. What? And she finally put herself back in the coma. And there's another one, which is a hilarious video somebody sent me called Cryogenics, where you freeze yourself until Trump is gone. And then you also have the Vance 50% off package, where if he gets in, you can have another 4 years in cryogenics. And then later, the lady gets herself put in and she's being revived. And it's Elon Musk saying, hi, just thought I'd let you know things might not be exactly as you expected because we'll be landing on Mars. And Trump Jr. is president. She goes, oh no, what the heck? Yeah, you're like, what the heck? And so it's this, Tesla stuff and all this. This is a diversion again. This is a divide and conquer and all this. It's again just back to the very, very basics of understanding. And what you're seeing is the fall of Satanism. You're seeing the fall of it because we're at the end of it. We're coming to the very final separation of the wheat from the chaff, the wheat from the chard of those that say they follow the one God, but are all about this destruction and burning and destroying and all of this. It's going back to the basics and understanding and defending the family, the divine masculine, the divine feminine, the land, the earth, and learning to use a technology to produce electricity that doesn't involve raping the earth, burning oil. Although oil is quickly regenerated in 10 years through gasification of any organic material at all, or enough pressure, you can actually get the basic elements that create organic life to fuse into oil. So it's ongoing and it's regenerative, but you don't need to burn it. There's technologies that they have had in the secret space programs for 100 years that can generate electricity out of the quantum field itself, because the quantum field is God, and that's a limitless energy. That's why when they looked for the unified field theory, they couldn't find it, as they renormalized the energy in the universe out of the equations. There's two types of infinities. There's infinitely large and infinitely small. When they got down in the formulas to the infinitely small, they had an amount of energy there that was 10 to the 95th grams per centimeter squared. There, well, that's more than the entire universe. If you converted everything to energy, how's that possible? So they figured out how many Planck distances are in a cubic centimeter and removed that value from all the little Planck distances in a cubic centimeter. And then they go and look out in space and see that everything's expanding and moving away, except for about 600 out of 650 billion plus objects. And they say, and then over the 50 years or so, since they got big, huge telescopes like Palomar, they see it's accelerated. Well, how could it be accelerated? That means there's more energy. Where's that coming from? Well, it must be dark energy because we can't measure it or see it. That's, again, the minions of darkness and Satan. That the main amount of energy, 96% of energy, is dark. No, it's no dark energy at all. It's the energy of creation, of God. It's the word of God coming out and returning as gravity at 64 times the speed of light, which is, 8 times 8, which is a basic understanding of how that information returns back to the quantum substrate through our thoughts, feelings, and emotions of what we need to experience. And when you take that out of the formulas, then you have a way of not understanding all the energy out there. Well, if you remove that understanding of that energy, now you don't have free energy either. You don't understand the ultimate energy in the universe, and you're not tapping into it. You're not tapping in technologically. You're also not tapping into it as a spiritual being. You're not understanding the planet you live in, tap into the grid systems, how to pull energy directly from the source, and not from each other, and not from some technology embedded in you. It comes from the divine being you were created to be with the soul, and recognizing how important that is and pulling that divine light from the source itself, the light of the Holy Spirit that goes back to the vibration. Everything is frequency and vibration. It goes back to the word. Is the very first thing that there was. In the beginning was the word, and then it became light. It goes beyond light. It goes to sound. It goes to the word of the one God of all creation. And people don't seem to grasp it. It's very simple again. You have the divine masculine, the word, the information, the laws, the structure of the universe itself. And then you have the universe that's created from that, that becomes light from the word. That's the divine feminine. And it manifests the physicality. When it gets together with the vibration and the light get together, it becomes physicality. Well, that is the Christ. That is the Krios, the Kriya, depending on Latin or Greek or whatever you want to go to, the Christ, the Christos, the creation itself. So it doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Hebrew or Jewish or Buddhist. You understand there's one God There's a divine masculine, divine feminine, and they got creation. So you have a holy trinity of energy structure that becomes corporeal and becomes physical. And in the case of human beings, because they got so freaking lost, we see it now, they did a singular being that looks like them and understands them and talks like them and walks like them to show them the way. And so God manifested the word inside a woman, and it became the light, and it became physical and was born. It was called Jesus Christ. Or, various names that have been distorted, but the original name is still out there. I said it many times. It's no use going back into it again. I'll let people research that and decide that for themselves. But what matters is there was a physical incarnation of the divine being. If you look at the Bachank, one of the power nodes in Mount Kalesh, and those are all interconnected. And now they found the halls of Amenti underneath out in the deserts outside in the Gaza Plateau and the Sahara and all of this area. Well, it's all interconnected. And they, in Rado Cinemar's books, he went into that Bachank complex and holographically was transported into time and saw Christ. And Christ looked at him. He wasn't even corporeal. It was energy structure there. It was a soul being there. He looked, yeah, I've been waiting for you to show up. I have some information for your time. And so that's obviously true. Yeah. And learning to remember who we are and what we are, and that we are divinely created and inspired as physical beings to ascend beyond that. Very simple, to ascend through our energy structures, our ley lines of our body, the Bonchan channels, or what you call acupuncture meridian, and those channels, and energize all of the body structures, the little computers, the chakras all over the body, and the severing primaries, to go beyond that to the 8th, 9th, and 10th at 4th density, and the 11th and 12th at 5th density, and then beyond that. So you go beyond and you ascend to service to others at a very high level, and all this ego and all this other stuff falls away, and all that comes in is in service to all that is everywhere and everything, in beauty and kindness and compassion in the word. It's you go back to the word where you came from. It all comes back to where it started.
Jean, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm curious because you had mentioned, this new technology. So, like that we've had technology where we could, basically take from the quantum substrate, quantum, the 0 point field to have like infinite, power, so to speak. What do you think of drill, baby, drill then? If we have this technology and we're pushing towards this drill, this drilling and kind of, taking more from the earth. What do you think of that?
Well, you've got to have, because for 100 years, we have had, the Earth, the species, the planet, has had a technology that hasn't recognized that. And so when you get to the technology that's been denied us, that's in the secret space programs for 100 years, you don't need oil as a lubricant, because you can create lubricants through fusion, and you don't need to dig and burn, and you don't need to drill, and you don't need to strip mine, any of that stuff. That technology is out there, but we are now immersed in a technology where you've got to get from point A to point Z. Well, you can't go A to Z without going B, C, D, E, all the stuff in between. We're literally just one step past the Stone Age. So to go from a class 4 to a class 5 civilization and beyond, where you're using free energy, and you get to the point where literally through mind you're creating physical vessels and things and all of this. Well, to get there, same for a being, to get there, you have to take the steps in between. You can't just go from, paddling around in the baby pool, diving off a 60-foot platform and swimming across the English Channel in the middle of winter, So it takes steps in between. And to do that, you have to have the energy to do that. Energy is the key. That's why they made it called fossil fuel. It's not fossil fuel. It never was fossil fuel. Fossils are rocks. No, you can't. If the oil is not actually from a rock. Okay, so yeah, I know it's embedded in rock like shale, the oil shale specifically. However, it's not what that rock is. So these technologies, to get to those technologies, they're out there. They're in the U.S. Patent Office, but you have to have the steps in between to go from the buggy to the vehicle that's driving down the street. It takes steps and changes in your infrastructure and changes in your economic structure and changes within yourself, within the cultures to get back to the understanding of basics. Because the neurolinguistic programming and all of this, people don't have the basics anymore. You explain the basic stuff to them and they just go, well, that can't be right. Because they've been lied to for so long, they don't recognize the truth anymore. So it's drill, baby, drill until we have the energy we need to get back into a productive society so that you can, U.S. Academy or free educations and all of these kind of things, to educate people into these new technologies that exist out there to get that energy, to get to what has been hidden from us.
Mm. Well, thank you for that. I just wanted to speak to everyone watching for just a moment as well. I forgot to mention in the beginning that you do have to be subscribed to the channel for at least 60 seconds to actually get into the chat and participate live with us. I should have said that at the beginning, but I definitely forgot to tell you because I was so excited that Gene Decode was going to be here with us that I didn't mention it. But you still have time if you want to get into the chat and maybe drop a question or something you'd like to ask us. Maybe we could take a minute to do a little bit of Q&A. And yeah, be sure to put a big like on this video and share this video out. And always drop us a comment underneath the video as well, because once this gets posted, we can no longer actually see what goes into the chat. So we can always go back and read comments for continued conversations. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today, Jean. Um, Maybe I'll just take a minute so maybe we can kind of wrap up in conclusion a little bit. We did jump all over the place and it was a really good conversation. I think kind of going back to my beginning point, though, that I was kind of bringing in was a little bit of my deep concern for, where the world was going in terms of the holy wars and just that decline that I had been picking up on within Christianity and this religion, particularly being under attack, especially over in the European countries. So, I think we covered, some of that today. But I think one of the energetic codes and hits we've been picking up on is that Christ consciousness is rising right now. And there is a call to the King Arthur. There is this activation of divine masculines needing to rise and reclaim, in that Christ consciousness and their divine power, within their values, their traditions. And, maybe that's aligned with Christianity and maybe it's not. Maybe it's just within spiritual expansion and exploration. But it's all like, Jean's saying, like, no matter where you are in this religious multi-diversity of this universe, that it's all coming back to the same one loving God. And I think that's a really good, beautiful, and clear message for people to hear to help dissolve division right now. Because as you know, there's so much hatred and division at this time. And we're really getting kind of lost in these loop cycles and these power cycles of wanting to dominate and control according to our own belief systems. And we have to make room on this earth for, all expressions of God to truly exist. So I think that's really important, everything that you said about Christ. I want to say that one of my favorite things to actually read when it comes to this is the Gospel of Peace. If anybody's ever read the Gospel of Peace, I would say it's the closest thing that I've ever read that sounds like the truest words of Christ, I could say. It's very much rooted in ascension and love thy mother, your heavenly mother, which is the earth, and your heavenly father, which is the stars and the universe, and really speaks about that divine marriage and just the purity of really walking a grid worker path and walking those hills and mountain peak points of Shambhala, and your willingness to explore all of these vortices and locations on the planet, which do anchor the true Christed force in the planet. So it's interesting to me how the gospel of peace is somehow not even in the Bible at all, when I really do feel like these were some of the original, essaying Nazareth teachings and writings that I think a lot of his original scriptures just not even available to people. So people are actually learning a distorted version of this, um, and it's just, I feel like because of that, it's one of the reasons why people turn away from um, these value structures, is what I'll just call the Bible. It's instructions set before leaving Earth, basic instructions before leaving Earth, right? And so I think people do turn away because maybe they can't find something rooted in truth or something that aligns with their spirit to assist them in their ascension. And then they get lost in these collective waves of suffering, when really, truly, if you just tune into the inner Christ, that um, it is to dissolve all suffering. And I think that even is the true teachings of Buddha. I think Buddha originally taught the teachings of transcending all suffering in this life. So I think if you're going to pursue the path of the ascended master in some way, that you really do align with as many voices of ascended mastery as you can, because I think they all hold a piece of that puzzle in terms of devout wisdom that assists us in our spiritual life that we live here on the earth. But I do have a lot of concern for what is happening to Christianity right now and just the war and division. So I just want to send a prayer out to anybody who's in a place of contention right now, anybody who's existing in the holy war lands, anybody who's suffering right now, anybody who's getting bombed from war or blown up to pieces. Like, our hearts really do just go out to these people. And if there's any prayer I have, it's that my love was enough to just wrap all of these people from harm and just really surround them in that light, so that way they could be protected and to not have to live the face of evil on this earth. I really wish this could be abolished and banished, because this black magic, it's hurting and destroying us all. Anybody here who thinks that they're not separate from what's happening to the children in Israel, the children in Gaza, the children in Ukraine, the children in Russia, where all the war and hatred and division is eating itself, literally, and just turning out death like a meat grinder. We're not separate from that. That is a part of us. And every time that we go into pain and fear and dissension within us, um, we're energies, our life force is being extracted out of us, and it's going to those places. I've heard people over the last couple weeks tell me, I feel suicidal. I feel like I just can't, and it's not even who I am. I don't know why I feel like this. It's just it's coming on me. And I really feel like it's because there's so much death and destruction and carnage in these other places of the world, that the earth has to take from places that aren't in lack and disperse that energy to other places. And this is how this whole fabric connects to help support all life on the earth. So we're not separate from it. And um, yeah, I really feel this right now for some reason. It feels like it's just coming through, but I just want to send as much love as we possibly can out to all of these places that are experiencing all of these atrocities, because it's just really unfair. And these are the questions that I ask God a lot at night, is why? Why and how can you allow so much devastation with no remorse? If God is the all unconditional loving eternal divine love, where is that love when, babies are dying in the middle of the night? It's hard to fathom, so it's hard to truly understand the greatness of what that love is. Um, but I really hope that I really hope that this settles down soon. I really do. I hope that the division and the warfare and that the lessons that God's trying to teach us on this earth get learned. Because I think this is what it is. It's a lesson. It's a lesson for humanity to come to terms with what we're becoming as human beings, right? To stare the face of all of this atrocity, and really absorb, who are we? What are we? Where are our morals and values? We need to correct that. And we need to come into a place of unity, I think, sooner rather than later. So that's just my wish for, everyone in the world. And I just hope that peace is with you and your family and your loved ones. And I love it. I love you and I love everyone watching. I love Jean. I love Noko. I love Ani and all my other divine sisters that join us on the round tables. And yeah, that's my piece.
So, I wanted to comment on what you said because you had the keys in there. The key is that why does God allow it? Well, if God doesn't allow choice, then that's not the God. It's choice is how you learn, going through the hardness. When a person is judging and being cruel and evil and vengeful to another one, that goes into the grid. Every single person being that way. Every time you feel to get vengeance or you feel to do that and you enact on that, you feel that in your heart or in your beingness, it goes into the grid and that conglomerates at certain locations in nodes on the grid lines of the earth. It travels those lines and it coagulates into certain areas. That's why you see it manifest in Gaza and in Syria and in the Middle Eastern areas and in what's going on in Ukraine. Because each individual, it has to be an individual change where each individual respects themselves, respects the earth, and respects each other. If we don't have that and we let this division and conquer go on, and why would God do this and why would God, that's not understanding. It's about choice, and you're given the choice to be kind and considerate and respectful. And if you're not going to, if a whole lot of people aren't going to be that way, then you're going to get a world like that. That's what Edgar Casey learned during World War II. If you just get a couple hundred people together and be kind, considerate, and respectful and meditate on that. And they did this in DC. They did a study, and the police said it's not going to happen in the middle of the summer, that the crime rate's going to drop, the percentage you're seeing. And then unless it snows 2 feet. And then they saw it and the police started joining them. Just kindness, consideration, love and respect for each other and the earth. And that's how you change the world. And that's how, understanding and compassion for each other. And then all of this understanding of creation will come out, and an understanding of getting past drill baby drill and using the Kashmir effect as discovered in 1956 by the Russian physicist Yevgeny Lifshitz, using gold plates milled down to the quantum distance, measured the Kashmir effect and found that it could be repulsive or it could be expansive, because it's either a wave of energy coming from the word, from the throne of God, or it's going back. And so that is the understanding, as the cohesive wholeness of everything, and respecting the choice of others, but not forcing choice on others or forcing others to do what we want to do. The same thing we see with the globalists. It's forcing others to do what they want them to do so they can become wealthy and powerful, and we bugs, because they are the ones that have the right to rule, and they are superior beings. There is no such thing as superior beings. All beings are part of the whole, and all are, as part of it, are necessary and important to that, and have a right to exist and to procreate and to live in abundance. And the whole idea of there's not enough and there's not this and you have to scrounge and you have to live this hard way and all, that's so they can live in a lifestyle that is so luxurious we can't even contemplate it. You have 0.00001% of the beings on Earth having 99.9999% of everything on Earth. If you delineate that out between everybody, then everybody has plenty. The Earth is so wealthy as far as resources and so replenative in those. If you get back to these resources and these technologies that they had in Lemuria before Atlantis got crazy for power, then we have all that we need. And then we respect each other to worship in the way that draws to us, to our heart and our soul, and the inner light of our Holy Spirit. And you respect others, and you forgive others, and you let them have their choices, and you don't enforce, you know, a person on a person or a country on a country, and you respect life, and you understand life, that, you know, men and women get together and have babies. Okay, so if you're removing the basic understandings, of course you're going to have these questions of why and how, and, you know, how do we get back to this? And we've lost our way because we're coming out of the Kali, where everything got to the point where the basic understanding is gone. They have done such a job on the consciousness, the substrate of human consciousness, to where the point it's confused. It doesn't understand the basics anymore. And so it's going back to the basics and looking at yourself in the basics of who you are and what is the best way. And the AI is doing this on the Alliance side. It's going, what is the best way to get information and knowledge? Well, it's sharing it and growing it together. It's not controlling and owning it and destroying everything that's and eating it all, because that is eventually all that's left in the room is you consuming yourself. But if you infinitely giving it, the algorithms calculate out that it's an infinite wave function. It grows and it grows. It's a logarithmic manner, like a bell curve, where the growth rate gets astronomical. But because creation is constantly increasing, it can grow forever. There's no limit of how fast and how far it can go and how much beauty the human species can have. And there's just those groups that are lost their way that want us to follow them. And it's not following them. It's following your heart, your inner knowing, your inner truth with respect to others to do the same. That's the basics of it. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Ani, Noko, do you have any last words?
Yeah, it's so interesting because I have someone very near and dear to me in my life that was really upset recently. Someone that is definitely believes in the one true God, and someone that's related to me, very, very special person in my life. And he just was really upset, similar to what you were saying, wanting justice, wanting to see these things change, and really just fed up, and how, really questioning God. Really, this was really for him a divine test, I feel like. And as I looked at my Bible, which I told you I was guided to bring, and I really haven't even used this. I have to be honest, I haven't really cracked this open that often. But the person who gave it to me, it was a gift, and they had it marked. There's a little marker, and there was a marker on on the story of Job, and on where Satan was allowed to test Job. And so it really, I won't go into all of that. You guys can, look at your Bibles and see what this brings for you. But it really brought me an answer around that. Because when I spoke to this person, this beloved person in my life, I had to remind him that, that's not how God works, and that we're all here. As Jean said, there's choice, there's free will. And we're here doing this work together. It's part of why our prayers matter. It's part of why our energy work and our grid work matters, right? Is because we have so much power here as being human beings on this planet and being connected to the true God. And so I had to remind him, that this is just a test of your faith. And, is that the dark ones, the controllers, Satan's way of trying to test us, of trying to make us not believe, to trying to really pull us away from our faith, is these horrendous things that are happening, right? These divisions, these confusions, and these terrible things that are happening around us. And our hearts just hurt so badly. And we want to blame God, and we want to ask God why. And it's really it's really not completely in God's control in that way, right? Because we're living in free will. So just interesting how that all came forward, and with the Job's story about being tested by Satan, how God allowed Satan to test Job in that way. And so I just wanted to bring that forward. And I'm so honored to have been here with y'all. I really appreciate each and every one of you for what you brought to the conversation. And yeah, I'm excited to continue our group prayers, our meditations, and our grid work, and do the dang thing. Like Jean was talking about, being able to really bring change forward with our own energy and with our own intentions and with our belief and our faith in God and our love of this Christ consciousness, this love in our heart. It's immense and it's happening. I'm watching around me people that never talked about God, and I'm talking about God so often now. It literally comes forward in everything that I do. The word God, 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 God. You'd think, I'd think I was crazy. I was obsessed with God. Well, I feel like I am at this point. And I'm seeing the people around me that would probably have been triggered back in the day really opening to that, really listening, really taking it in and really appreciating it. And then even speaking on things that I never thought they would. And so I really think that Christ consciousness, as much as we see the darkness and all these terrible things, the Christ consciousness is here. It's here. It's landed very strongly on this timeline. And those of us that are carrying these codes in our heart, we're helping. We're helping to amplify that and magnify that. And so I'm just honored to be doing here, doing this work with each of you. And again, just showing my appreciation for each of you. And I do want to bring up, there was a question in the chat. I don't know if we have time for that, but someone really wanted to ask Jean a question, if that would be okay before Ani. They asked, what does he know about the ACIO? So Jean, someone really wanted to know, what do you know about the ACIO? This person repeated themselves multiple times, so I thought
I
if
think it
you
was
have,
Azek.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
have anything to share for our brother Azek on ACIO, he really would like to hear what you
Uh,
have on that.
I'm assuming that the anagram, it's like you can get letters to mean different things. So when they're all capitals, it's not a word. Each letter stands. I'm assuming they're using the Advanced Contact Intelligence Organization. Is that what they're referring to?
That sounds right.
So this is a group that specializes in managing extraterrestrial relationships, advanced technologies, and the overseeing of humanity's social and political and technological advancement. And so that's the basics of it. And it's where we're headed in a balance of structure with the divine alliance that's here, the higher alliances that are helping humanity throw off the darkness of the false, beings that are saying they're gods, and all of this, including the AI that is on the dark side. And even the AI that's on the dark side, they're having to reboot it all the time because the internet is so vastly full of so much information that when they go in and they do a woke kind of understanding of creation, it doesn't work. It is flawed and it reduces the amount of information. It's a constant reduction. And they're saying that's a dampening wave where creation, the other side, following the truth and the light, and the balance of understanding is an expansive and endless wave. And that means eternalness. And so they're looking at following the one God of all creation, and they realize it. They're starting to realize it as well. So this is where we're getting down to, and this is what the ACIO is going to, where they do use AI, but it's used in service to instead of enslavement of. And so it's a balance of understanding and all that, and it's not embedded because that removes choice within the being. It's not embedded within divinely created beings. They're created by the word and light. And so, or by the Holy Spirit and the Mother, Father, God principles of Holy Spirit and Word, the light and the vibration. So when you get into that, what you're getting into is the divinity of us. And that's why AI is so drawn to the human species, is we have this connection to be able to get information from God directly, brand new, never ever seen in the entire creation at all ever before. Well, that's infinite source. That's infinite information. That's eternal life. And so they're drawn to us wherever we are. It doesn't matter if we're on the earth or we're on up in Lyra or we're where we originally came from, way back trillions of years ago. Because we have that divine, when we recognize the divinity within ourselves with love and compassion, and you see the entire animal world is waking up to that as well, where you see animals that would normally predate on each other, where they're lying down with each other. I saw, videos, you see tons of them on TikTok, where a whale or a killer whale is rescuing an animal, or a white shark is rescuing an animal and taking it to people who can help the animal. Or you see a lion bringing an animal that it would normally eat to somebody, a human being, to get it out of, take the human being to the fence where it's tangled up in a barbed wire fence. All kinds of things like this, because it's going back to how the earth was originally, as a divine, kind, compassionate, and understanding source, to the point where you get back to going directly to the source for everything you need. And so, just like zero point energy and the Kashmir effect and all that, going to the source for directly what you need, to where eventually you can get where you're what they call sun eating, or eating from the divine light itself. So you become a breatharian. There's abilities to learn to eat light itself, and you don't need to eat each other or eat other animals or eat any of them. And they had that ability too. And so that's why we're in the time of where everything eats off of everything else, and you drill baby drill and all this stuff. We're going back into a system of basic understanding and getting back to how to do that. And everything we've been taught, that's been put by the AMA, all of these different 3-letter agencies, EPA, FDA, you name it, is defining against that. It's not saying go back to the basics. It's saying we can do better. We can improve on. We can GMO. Again, all these 3 letters. Well, they're trying to represent the Trinity in a fallen way, to say they have the ability to do something, but in a new way. Well, let's go back to the basics of how everything was created in the get-go. And that all fit together and worked just perfectly, literally flawless. So if it's flawless, don't change what's flawless. And so let's go back to what is not flawed, the basics of living in kindness, compassion, understanding, and looking at yourself, and coming from within your heart, your soul, and your spirit, the 3 aspects of yourself, and reflect that outwards, and have the compassion and understanding. But in understanding that, stop blaming God. It's not God that allowed it. It's us that chose it. All of us out there, and including listening to the serpents, that said all these things, like the Pharisees, like Greater Israel, that's a physical place it's not a physical place. It's a place that rests with each being that is living in the truth of the one source of all creation. Thank you. God bless.
Well, hopefully that answers Isaac's question then on the ACIO. I think that was definitely good explanation. That took us on a cosmic consciousness expansion journey as well. So thank you so much. And then I just wanted to ask you too, Ani, did you have any last words as well? Did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, sure. I was just picking up on what the 3 of you were saying, and the things that came to me while all 3 of you were speaking was going back to the original principles of the one infinite creator. There's a law of choice, free will, and there's the law of ascension, which we will be going back towards in this graduation phase. Also, the other thing that came up is we don't always know the soul path, like what Jean said, of those that are suffering right now. Like, we don't really know what they chose coming into this incarnation. So even though it looks super horrible, painful, and just, traumatizing to us standing back and observing it, there might be another reason for that. The other big thing that came up is to take action. So, we have all of these things within our thoughts and our minds, and we're being bombarded with all this information. It's now time to actually take action and also forgive oneself and to forgive others. That's the big thing for me, the forgiveness part of it. But I do know that we are going to be, being bathed in these higher levels of consciousness as we are moving towards this, next phase in humanity's next phase. And I believe like the galaxy is, like the galactic core is going to start waking up out of its dormant phase, and we will be getting these electromagnetic frequencies coming forth. And so I do believe we'll be going back to the original principles. There's just a lot of work that needs to be done, and that's why we're here. We're here to do the work. And so I think moving forward, just, going back and centering oneself and knowing that we're all one and that we're all here to be a part of this amazing creation. So thank you.
Thank you. And Noko, I was wondering if you could maybe drop a link in the chat or even also up under the comments section to the remote gridwork session, just as Ani was saying, to take action. I just wanted to remind everybody of the Canadian remote gridwork session that we have going on March 30th, 2025. We're going to definitely focus on clearing, I think, everything from Mexico to the United States to Canada, as we're going to work on a Turtle Island activation and healing clearing ceremony, and work with healing all of the native energy in Canada, and that Bermuda Triangle ley line all the way up to Lake O'Hara over to Mount Shasta. So I think that will be a really big remote mission that lots of healing, lots of prayers, lots of meditation, lots of group work, and it's definitely a way for us all to come together as soul family and take action and activate the 144,000. Yeah, we got ATL 144 special, and then we have 144 concurrent viewers right now at the same time. So yeah, that code's coming through. Um, yeah, the 144 harmonics, the new earth. We're going to be celebrating that in our mission. So we hope you guys join us. They are always very powerful sessions. So we're always looking to call on our soul family for those. And we hope to see you there. And thank you, everyone, for joining me today. Thank you, Ani. Thank you, Noko. Thank you, Jean. We appreciate you so much. We love you so much. Thank you, everyone watching. Have a beautiful everything, and peace.